Welcome to Techstination. Joining us is Professor Michael Hornberger from the Norwich Medical School at the University of East Anglia in the UK. Thank you for joining us, Professor Hornberger.
Thank you for having me.
You're doing something really interesting, developing a mobile game that can help to detect the risk of Alzheimer's. Give us a little overview of what's going on here.
So a few years back we developed a mobile game called Sea Hero Quest, and really the purpose of the game was to collect a large sample of people, how they navigate. So from our research we know that subtle navigation changes are some of the first signs for Alzheimer's disease, many years even before memory problems occur. The problem is, of course, that to detect these subtle navigation difficulties, we needed quite a large data of healthy normal people to compare it to. So we launched this game, which was 3 years ago launched, and has by now collected data in healthy people in around 4.4 million people. So it's been a huge success with, I think in the US itself, I think we have over 1 million people who've contributed data to it. So it was a fantastic way of collecting data from people of ages 18 to 90 years of age we have. And now with the current study, we take this one step further. So now we're looking at people who are at a genetic risk of dementia, and compared them to this very large data set to see if we can already detect these subtle navigation findings. And this is exactly what we have found.
Describe for us what the game is like, the types of people that you've had playing it.
Yes, the game is really meant to be a really casual mobile game so that people can easily pick it up and play it. And you move it feels like a game where you steer a boat through different environments and you have to find different goals. Sometimes you get a map to navigate, sometimes you don't. And within this, it feels like finding these different pieces of the map, which there's a story behind that, which if you play the game, you can find out what the story is. You're really, in a playful way, we're collecting your data all the time. So it's a very kind of casual way of measuring it. But underneath it, I should say, the science is very, very solid, because we designed all the levels of the game that we know which landmarks people use for navigation. And we're also measuring for everyone their position and heading direction every 500 milliseconds within the game, so we can actually trace back where people went within the game.
So describe for us how this data might be used going forward. Some might say, is there any danger to having this kind of information, risk of Alzheimer's? Tell us what your thoughts are.
Yes, clearly, I think the point really of our data is that we can detect people who are very much in the earliest stages potentially of Alzheimer's disease, even long before they have memory symptoms. The reason why we want to really find this out is that if you have memory problems, we know now that usually the disease is quite advanced in the brain already, and there's very little you can do at that time. However, if we can identify people much earlier, then we can actually reduce the risk or potentially delay the onset of the dementia. So, for example, there is really good data now out there that if you early enough detect people, then you can reduce the risk of dementia in people by up to 30% just via lifestyle changes, such as diet, physical exercise, or sleep.
And Deutsche Telekom was involved in developing this game. Is it something that everyday people are going to be able to download and use and learn about their risks?
Yes, so Deutsche Telekom was involved in funding the original game, and we collected the very large data, which we use for comparison now with our at-risk groups. But now for the research going onwards, we involve a lot of the research councils and charities as well, because clearly this is not meant to be kind of a marketable tool for dementia diagnostics. However, what we can use now the data for is that from this data we can now extract the most important features to detect those very subtle navigation changes right at the beginning of the disease, and then can develop a quick diagnostic test for this. So it's not that people should play the game to get a diagnosis, it's much more that we can develop from this now a diagnostic test and still still can use this very large data to compare them against that. So it gives you much more personalized diagnosis for your own age and gender and where you come from, whether really the navigation changes you might show, whether they are due to you are at risk of developing Alzheimer's disease.
Are there plans to make this widely available?
Clearly, the wider we can make this available, the better. But at the moment, we're really just at the beginning of this journey, and we're very excited that we can find these changes, these subtle changes. And then the beauty, of course, of spatial navigation is that we do it every day, every one of us. We're navigating through the world, and it's very what we call non-verbal. So you don't need to learn words or addresses which are commonly used for dementia diagnostics. Instead, it's a very intuitive way actually of testing people for potentially Alzheimer's disease signs.
But at this stage, this isn't something that people can go to the Google Play Store or Apple and download this, right?
Well, we had the game available, but now it's closed basically because we don't want to make it available now for diagnostics. So it was available on Google Play and the Apple App Store for the big data, but now for the diagnosis, we only make it now in the first instance available via Alzheimer's Research UK, which is a dementia charity, and we make it available via them for research purposes, and then eventually we will launch them very likely with the health services, then a diagnostic tool where people can use this for diagnosis then.
And the advantages of this over any other form, say genetic testing, that kind of thing?
Yes, so genetic testing is really a big question which many people have. Now, to actually have the genes that you will definitely develop dementia is very, very rare. Very few people in the world have that. However, what we all have genes which either increase or decrease our risk for dementia. And we all carry them in us, like we have genes for heart disease and for other diseases. So I would not be... In terms of genetic testing, we can only therefore see what people's risk is, but it doesn't tell you whether you will actually develop it. With our test, by contrast, we can much more clearer say that you show maybe the first signs of Alzheimer's disease, and you can then change, as I said, your lifestyle potentially, or change medication, discuss this with your doctor, how you can reduce your risk actually for developing Alzheimer's disease in the future.
Is there a place people can go for more information about what you're doing and perhaps when it's available again, take advantage of this?
Yes, absolutely. So they can still, if people still Google for Sea Hero Quest, which is the name of our game, they can find all the relevant information, which will lead you on as well to our dementia charity partners and gives you also more information if you're worried about having dementia. This applies internationally for different countries, so this is the best place of call to Google that and then to go further from there.
Again, that's Sea Hero Quest. Professor Michael Hornberger, thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now this. Innovation. Hi, I'm Fred Fishkin, and I've been covering consumer technology for a long time, and it takes a lot to impress me. That's why I'm excited to tell you about the latest way to enjoy cooking in the great outdoors from my friend Patrick Sherwin and his great team at GoSun Stove. What if you could harness the sun to cook your meals anywhere you go, day or night? The GoSun Fusion arrives this summer using the company's tried and true reflectors and a solar vacuum tube to get you cooking without the mess of charcoal, heavy propane tanks, or smoke. And with an optional solar panel and battery storage, and the ability to plug in at home or on the road, you really can use the GoSun Fusion to cook anytime and anywhere. Want to learn more? Head to gosun.co and use the code TEXTINATION to save 10%. That's gosun.co.